The house was quiet that evening, too quiet for a home that once echoed with laughter and music. The old wooden clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking the seconds that felt like hours. I was sitting by the window, knitting a sweater I had started months ago for my daughter, Emily. The yarn slipped through my fingers like time itself, soft, delicate, and impossible to hold onto for long. She had promised to visit that day, and even though she was running late as usual, I waited. Mothers always wait. The last time we had spoken wasn't pleasant. She had come home for the weekend, her tone sharp, her words colder than the winter air. I could still hear her voice echoing in my mind, the words that pierced deeper than any wound could. "You're old, Mom. You're old and pathetic. You don't understand my life anymore." It wasn't anger I had felt in that moment, it was a deep, silent ache. The kind of pain that doesn't make you cry right away. It just settles quietly inside you, like dust on forgotten shelves. I remember standing there, frozen, holding a photo frame of her first day at school. Her smile in that picture was wide and innocent. I wondered how that same little girl had grown into someone who looked at me with so much resentment. That day, after she stormed out, I sat at the kitchen table long after she left. I brewed tea for two, even though there was no one else to drink it. The cup grew cold beside me, untouched. The clock ticked louder. I could hear the old pipes hum faintly through the silence, as if the house itself was trying to comfort me. I knew she didn't mean it, or maybe she did in that moment. Maybe she saw me as a burden, a leftover piece of her past she didn't want to carry into her shiny new life. She had moved to the city, gotten a good job, a circle of glamorous friends who laughed loudly and dressed beautifully. And me. I was the mother who still used the same old phone, who still wore sweaters with loose threads, who still believed that family dinners could fix everything. When she called a week later, I answered on the first ring. My heart still wanted to believe she was calling to apologize, but instead, she asked for money. Rent, bills, some unexpected expenses. I didn't hesitate. I sent it all, pretending I hadn't heard the tiredness in her tone, pretending I hadn't noticed she said thanks instead of thank you, Mom. Nights after that felt heavier. I would wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, thinking I heard her voice in the hallway. I would make her favorite soup on Sundays even though she rarely came by. My friends told me to move on, to focus on myself, to stop caring so much. But motherhood doesn't have an off switch. You don't stop loving your child because they've stopped needing you. That winter was especially harsh. My knees ached more than usual, the heater made strange noises, and the snow outside seemed endless. I remember looking out the window one night and whispering to myself, "She'll come home soon." I didn't know whether I was saying it out of hope or habit. Then, one morning, I received a message from her. Just 2 lines, "Don't expect me this weekend. I'm busy. You should get out more instead of waiting for me all the time." I stared at the words for a long while. There was no anger in them, just distance. And that hurt even more. That evening, I went to her room. It still looked the same, pastel walls, photos of her friends, the bookshelf filled with stories we used to read together. I sat on her bed and held a scarf she had left behind. The smell of her perfume lingered faintly, like a memory refusing to fade. I closed my eyes and let the tears come quietly. In the days that followed, I started doing small things to fill the silence. I volunteered at the local community center, helped children with their homework, and joined a group of women who knitted blankets for hospitals. For the first time in years, I found a strange peace in routine, a reason to smile again. Sometimes, I even laughed. But every night, before sleeping, I still looked at my phone, hoping to see her name light up the screen. Months passed. Spring came, painting the town in colors again. I learned to live around the emptiness, to make tea for one, to hum to myself while cooking. I thought maybe this was how things would remain, me in my quiet world, her in her busy one. Then one day, out of nowhere, I received a call. It was late evening. The voice on the other end was trembling, breaking between words. "Mom, can I come home?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. The sound of her voice after so long, it was like hearing a song you thought you'd forgotten the tune of. I said yes, of course. I didn't ask why. Mothers don't ask. They just open the door. The next morning, I stood by the window again, watching the road. The same road where I had waited countless times before. My heart raced with something I hadn't felt in a long while, hope mixed with fear. When I finally saw her car pull up, I almost couldn't move. She stepped out, and for the first time in years, she looked small again. Her eyes were swollen, her shoulders heavy with something unspoken. She walked up to me slowly, as if unsure whether she still belonged here. When she reached the porch, she stopped, looked at me, and her lips quivered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And in that moment, all the anger, all the pain, all the nights of silence faded away. I didn't ask her what had happened. I didn't need to. I just opened my arms, and she fell into them like a child again. The world around us blurred, the birds, the rustling trees, even the ticking clock inside. There was only that moment, that quiet forgiveness between a mother and her daughter. But what she told me after that changed everything. She sat down on the old couch, her hands trembling as she tried to find the right words. I poured her some tea, just like I always did. She wrapped her fingers around the cup, but didn't drink. Her eyes were red, her lips dry. For a long moment, there was only silence between us, the kind of silence that carries years of distance, of things left unsaid. Then, with a shaky breath, she whispered, "I lost everything, Mom." Those words sank into the air like heavy stones. I didn't rush her. I didn't ask how, or why. I just listened, because that's what mothers do when their children finally start talking again. She told me about the new job she had taken a year ago, the pressure, the long hours, the endless need to prove herself. She told me about her boyfriend, how charming he had seemed at first, how he said all the right things, how she believed him when he promised to take care of her. Then, slowly, she spoke of the cracks that started to show, the small lies, the manipulation, the emotional distance. She said she ignored them, thinking love could fix it. But love, she said through tears, can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. She told me how one night, he left. No note, no message, just gone. Along with her savings, her trust, her peace of mind. She tried to keep her job, but everything around her reminded her of what she'd lost. Her boss noticed her performance slipping. Then came the warnings, then the final email. Within weeks, her world collapsed. And in that chaos, she said, she thought of me. "I kept hearing your voice," she said, her tears falling fast now. "The things you used to say about patience, about not trusting people too quickly. I thought I was smarter than you. I thought I didn't need your advice. And I said horrible things to you, things I can't take back." I reached out and held her hand. Her skin was cold, her fingers shaking. I wanted to tell her that I had already forgiven her long ago, that every night I had prayed she was safe, that every birthday I had whispered her name. But I didn't interrupt. She needed to speak, and I needed to listen. She took another breath, steadier this time. "Mom, when I said you were old and pathetic that day, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about me. I was scared that I'd end up like you, quiet, alone, without anyone. But now I see how wrong I was. You were never pathetic. You were strong. You faced everything life threw at you and you never gave up. I just didn't see it. I felt my eyes fill, but I didn't let the tears fall. I had waited too long for this moment, and I wanted to remember it clearly, her voice, her words, her remorse. I smiled softly and said, "It's all right, Emily. You came home. That's what matters." She broke down then, completely. The kind of crying that comes from deep inside, not just sadness, but guilt, relief, and exhaustion all at once. I held her close, running my hand through her hair the way I used to when she was little. I could feel her heartbeat racing against mine, as if time had folded in on itself, and for a few minutes, we were just mother and child again, the years of hurt washed away by tears. That night, I made her favorite soup, the one she used to ask for every Sunday. She sat at the table, quiet but calmer, watching me move around the kitchen. "I missed this," she said softly. "I missed you." We ate in silence, but it was a warm silence this time. The kind that heals instead of hurts. After dinner, she insisted on washing the dishes, and I let her. As she stood by the sink, sleeves rolled up, hair falling over her face, I realized how much she had grown and how much she had suffered. Later, as I tucked an extra blanket over her in her old room, she looked up at me and said, "Mom, I don't deserve your kindness." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "You don't have to deserve it, sweetheart. You just have to accept it." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." That night, I sat by her door long after she had fallen asleep. The rhythm of her breathing was steady, peaceful. I couldn't remember the last time she had slept under this roof. The clock ticked softly in the hallway, and the house, once filled with emptiness, felt alive again. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains. I made breakfast, humming to myself. For the first time in years, I felt something like happiness return. Emily joined me at the table, hair messy, face fresh. She looked younger somehow, lighter. "I got a message from work," she said, sipping her coffee. "They want to meet next week. Maybe there's a chance I can get my job back." I smiled, pride swelling quietly inside me. "You will. I know you will." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I don't know how to make things right, Mom. I said so many cruel things. I made you feel unwanted." I shook my head. "You were lost, that's all. We all lose our way sometimes." She was silent for a moment, then asked, "How did you never hate me for what I said?" I thought about it for a long second before answering. Because love isn't about keeping score. It's about holding on, even when it hurts. "You're my daughter, Emily. That never changes." She looked down, and tears glistened in her eyes again. But this time, they weren't just from sorrow. They were from understanding. That day, we cleaned the house together. She found her old childhood books, a few crumpled letters I'd kept, and the broken photo frame from the day she'd left. She picked it up, ran her fingers over the glass, and whispered, "I can't believe you kept this." I smiled faintly. Mothers keep everything. Even the pieces that hurt. She hugged me suddenly, tightly, like she never wanted to let go. "I'm sorry for the years I wasted," she said. I held her just as tightly. "They weren't wasted, my love. They were just part of the journey." As the day faded into evening, she helped me in the garden, the two of us side by side, planting new flowers where the frost had killed the old ones. The soil was cold and damp, but the act felt sacred, as if we were burying the past and planting something new in its place. When the sun began to set, she looked at the horizon and said quietly, "You know, Mom, I used to think you were weak because you forgave people too easily. But now I see that forgiveness takes strength. More than anger ever could." I didn't reply. I just looked at her and smiled. Because she was finally beginning to understand. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to find its rhythm again. Emily stayed with me, helping around the house, cooking small meals, fixing things I had long ignored. It wasn't about duty, it was about healing. Every morning, we shared quiet coffee, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with silence. And every day, I saw the daughter I once knew, softer, humbler, more human, returning piece by piece. She started taking walks around the neighborhood again. Sometimes I watched her from the porch as she waved to the neighbors she once used to rush past without a glance. There was something new in her stride, not pride, but peace. One afternoon, as the light filtered gently through the curtains, she came to me holding a small envelope. "Mom," she said, her voice a mix of fear and hope, "they rehired me. A new position. Better hours. More stability." I felt tears welling up before I could stop them. "I told you they'd see your worth again." She smiled, a real one this time, not the polite smile she used to wear for the world. "I want to do things right this time," she said. "I want to live differently. And I want to take care of you too." I laughed softly. "Oh, you don't have to take care of me, dear. Just live. That's enough." But she shook her head. "No, Mom. You spent your whole life taking care of me. It's time I returned that kindness." The next few months were quiet, peaceful. She started working again, coming home with stories about her colleagues, her projects, her new friends. Sometimes, she'd ask for advice, and I'd see a glimpse of that little girl who once couldn't sleep without hearing my voice. But even as joy returned, there were moments when guilt still lingered in her eyes. I'd catch her staring at me when she thought I wasn't looking, as if still trying to forgive herself. One evening, I decided to help her with that. We sat outside, watching the sunset bleed into shades of gold and red. The air smelled like rain and fresh soil. I turned to her and said, "Emily, do you know why I forgave you so easily?" She looked puzzled. "Because you're you?" I smiled. "No. Because I've made mistakes too. Maybe not the same ones, but ones that hurt others. Life has a way of humbling us all, sweetheart. The real test isn't never failing, it's finding the courage to come back home after we do." Her eyes shimmered, and she whispered, "You're the strongest person I know." I chuckled softly. Then I must have done something right. A few days later, she surprised me. I came home from the store to find the living room completely rearranged. The old curtains replaced, the walls freshly painted, and in the center, a large framed photo of us from years ago, before the distance, before the words that broke us. "I wanted this house to feel like home again," she said shyly. "Not a place haunted by memories." I stood there, speechless. The sunlight caught the photo's glass just right, and for a second, I saw both of us, not as we were, but as we had become, two women who had been broken by time and pride, but still found their way back to love. Later that night, I found a note on my bedside table. Her handwriting was shaky but full of feeling. "Mom, I used to think you were old-fashioned, that your kindness was weakness. Now I see it was strength, the kind that saves people, even when they don't deserve saving. You never gave up on me. I promise I'll never take that for granted again. Love, Emily." I held that letter against my heart for a long time. And I cried, not from pain this time, but from gratitude. Months turned into a year. Emily got promoted at work. She started volunteering at a shelter for women who had faced abuse and abandonment, women who reminded her of herself. She'd come home late, tired but glowing. "Helping them helps me," she'd say. One winter evening, as we decorated the small Christmas tree in the living room, she said something that stayed with me forever. "Mom," she whispered, hanging a small ornament she'd made as a child, "when I was younger, I thought growing up meant leaving you behind. But now I realize, growing up means coming back to understand you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat tightened, and the only sound between us was the soft rustle of tinsel and the faint hum of a carol playing on the radio. As the lights blinked on, warm and golden, she took my hand. "You're not old and pathetic," she said quietly. "You're my hero." And in that moment, all the pain, all the years of silence and hurt, melted away. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long, long while, I felt peace, deep, soul-deep peace, knowing that forgiveness had not only healed her, but me too. Because love, real love, doesn't fade with time. It waits. It bends, but it never breaks. And sometimes, all it takes to find your way home is one simple truth, that no matter how far we fall, the heart of a mother will always be waiting, open, and forgiving.